Hello guys, welcome to my channel, The Night Files. If you love the sound of footsteps in the dark, whispers behind closed doors, and stories that keep you up at night, you're in the right place. Every week, we dive into true tales of terror, chilling urban legends, and mysterious encounters from the shadows. Turn down the lights, plug in your headphones, and get ready, because the night is just beginning. I inherited a house from an uncle I barely knew. It was an old farmhouse, way out in rural Minnesota, isolated, surrounded by nothing but trees and frozen dirt roads. He'd lived off the grid for years before he died. No electricity, no phone. When I arrived to clean the place up, I felt like I had stepped into a different century. But what unsettled me wasn't the silence. It was the thick, rotting smell coming from the basement. The basement door was nailed shut from the outside. Big iron nails. Deep. Fresh. That made no sense. If my uncle was living alone, who nailed it? And why? Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a crowbar and pulled the boards off. The smell hit me like a wall of death. I turned on my flashlight and took one step down. That's when I heard something shuffling in the dark below. I froze. Something was down there, breathing, moving. It didn't sound human. Then came this noise, like bones snapping, followed by a wet, gurgling scream. It echoed up the stairs and through the walls. I ran out of the house. I told myself it was an animal, maybe a raccoon, but I couldn't explain what I heard. That night, I slept in my truck with the doors locked. The next morning, I searched the house and found a leather-bound journal under a loose floorboard. It was filled with strange sketches, deer skulls with human teeth, stick figures with hollow eyes, and entries like, "It lives in the basement. I keep it trapped. I feed it raw meat. It used to be a man." Another page read, "Do not talk to it. It remembers its name." At the bottom, the word Wendigo was written over and over again in shaky, blood-colored ink. I should have left, but I wanted proof. I went back to the basement, this time with a GoPro, flashlight, and a butcher's knife. I opened the door slowly. The cold air rushed out like a breath. And then I heard it, a voice whispering my name from below, not in anger, but in hunger. I stepped down 2 stairs, then 4. The light flickered. At the bottom of the basement, I saw it. 7 feet tall, emaciated, skin stretched like leather over bones. Its mouth hung open unnaturally wide, teeth like rusted needles. Eyes white and empty, like it had stared into the void and never blinked. It didn't run. It waited for me to come closer. I turned and ran. It screamed again. This time, my own voice, mimicked perfectly. The stairs cracked as I bolted up. I slammed the basement door shut and nailed it shut again, like my uncle had. Then I torched the house and never looked back. But even now I wonder, what if it got out? What if the house didn't burn fully? Some nights, I swear I still hear it whispering my name in the wind. A voice that doesn't belong in this world. And I know, the Wendigo is still hungry. They say the forest changes in winter, that it grows quiet, too quiet. I used to think it was just the snow, muffling everything. But now I know better. My name is Jake. My brother, Caleb, disappeared last winter on a solo hunting trip up near the border. He was seasoned, knew the woods like the back of his hand. But one night, just before he vanished, he radioed me. His voice was shaking. He said, "I saw it. Tall, bone-white. It's whispering to me." Then static, and nothing else. The search teams found nothing. No tracks, no blood, just his tent, half collapsed, and claw marks in the snow, long, deep, and not human. I couldn't let it go. So I went out there myself. I followed his trail, found the campsite. Everything frozen, still, and wrong. That night, I made a fire. The silence was unbearable. No wind, no animals, just cold. Then I heard it. A whisper, barely a breath. "Jake." I stood up fast. It sounded like Caleb, but warped, like it was coming through a tunnel filled with static and sorrow. Then came the smell. Rancid, like rotting meat buried under frost. That's when I saw IT stepped out from behind the trees. Tall, emaciated, skin stretched over bones like wax paper, glowing eyes sunk deep into its skull. Antlers rose from its head like twisted tree limbs. And its mouth. God, that mouth. It smiled. IT spoke again. And this time, I'll never forget what it said. "I'm so hungry, brother." I ran. I didn't think. I just ran. Through the snow, through the dark. But I could still hear the whisper. Not behind me. They say I was hallucinating, grief-stricken, broken, but I know what's out there. And if you ever hear your name whispered in the woods, don't look back, because once the Wendigo finds you, you're already his. I went winter camping with 3 friends last January: Derek, Lisa, and Jordan. We were all experienced hikers, so when Lisa suggested heading into the Alberta backcountry for 4 days, we agreed instantly that we wanted isolation. We got it. The hike-in was beautiful. Frozen streams, snow-covered trees, no signs of life for miles. That we pitched our tents on the second night in a clearing surrounded by dense pines. That's when things started to feel off. It began with Lisa. She said she heard something outside her tent around midnight. A voice, low, rasping, calling her name. But when she looked out, there was nothing but trees. We laughed it off. Probably the wind. Maybe a dream. Then Jordan disappeared. I woke up to Derek screaming his name. Jordan's tent was open. His sleeping bag was cold and no tracks leading away. Just a long dragging trail into the woods. And then nothing. Lisa was hysterical. She said Jordan came to her in the night. He whispered through the tent wall, saying he was cold and needed help. But his voice didn't sound right. It was echoey. We stayed one more night. That was a mistake. At around 2 a.m., I heard tapping on my tent point. 3 slow taps. Then silence. Then 3 more. Then I heard it. Derek. The voice was soft, almost a whimper, but it was coming from inside the tent. I turned around, heart pounding. Nothing. I scrambled out into the snow and flashed my light around. Then I saw them. Eyes, high in the tree line, white. Unblinking. Not animal eyes, mirror eyes. It moved too fast. A blur of gray limbs. Fingers, a bone-thin body. It vanished behind the trees, but the sound stayed. Ragged breathing, soft footsteps. I ran to Derek's tent. Empty, blood in the snow. Lisa was the only one left. She was rocking near the fire, mumbling, "Don't look into the trees." I tried to pull her up, but she screamed like I was the monster. She said it had taken Derek's voice, that it wore their voices like masks, and it wasn't done yet. I left her. I ran 2 full days of hiking. No sleep, no food, just fear. They never found Lisa or the others. Every winter, more hikers disappear. They blame snowstorms, avalanches, but I know the truth. If you hear someone calling your name in the forest, don't answer. I was 17. It was winter when I went hunting with my uncle in northern Canada. It was the kind of cold that slices through layers, the kind of place where silence isn't peaceful. It's a warning. My uncle had one rule: never leave the trail. No matter what you see or hear, don't follow anything. The first 2 days were uneventful. The snow was deep, the forest still. But on the third day, something changed. The air felt heavier, like the woods were watching us. We found no tracks, no animals, not even birds. It was dead quiet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in the cabin, listening to the wind howl through the trees until I heard something else. It was my mom's voice. "Help me, please." My mother was hundreds of miles away, but I heard her just beyond the trees, like she was right there, crying for help. I told myself I was dreaming, but the voice came again. "Please, I'm hurt. I need you." Without thinking, I grabbed a flashlight and opened the door. The cold punched me in the chest, but I stepped into the night. I called out, and the voice answered, always just ahead, just out of reach. I followed it, into the trees, past the trail, deeper and deeper. Then the forest went silent. No wind, no crunch of snow, nothing, just breath, my own and something else. Then I saw it. First, I thought it was a tree, tall, thin, unmoving. But then it turned, its face stretched and gaunt, like skin pulled over a skull. Its mouth, open impossibly wide, filled with jagged teeth, and its eyes, hollow, glowing faintly like dying embers. It wore my mother's face. Not perfectly. Twisted, rotten, like it remembered what she looked like, but only barely. I couldn't move. My body locked up. My mind screamed. And then it spoke. My name, in her voice, dripping with hunger. The light flickered, and when it came back, it was closer. Then, a crack, a gunshot. My uncle. He dragged me out of there, not saying a word. We didn't stop until we reached the cabin. I was frostbitten, shaking, half out of my mind. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. Then, he said, "You looked into the Wendigo's eyes. Part of you will never come back." And he was right. I've never been the same. Sometimes I hear the voice again, calling from the woods. And sometimes I feel like answering. There were 5 of us, just a group of college friends looking for a quiet winter weekend away from everything. We found a cheap, remote cabin deep in the woods of Minnesota. No cell signal, no neighbors, just snow and silence. It sounded perfect. We arrived just before sundown. The cabin was older than we expected. Cold, creaky, but we settled in, lit a fire, and told stories while the wind howled outside. Just as we were dozing off, we heard it, scratching. Faint, but clear, coming from the front door. We froze. No one moved. Then came the whispers, low, breathy, impossible to understand, but somehow familiar. Tom got up and looked through the peephole. There was nothing there, just snow and shadows. The next morning, we chalked it up to wind and nerves. We laughed it off. But the second night, it got worse. The whispers came again, louder this time, circling the cabin, like something was moving out there. Then we heard heavy footsteps on the roof, and a thud, as if something had dropped onto the porch. Then came the third night. That's when Sarah went missing. We woke up to her empty bed, the door wide open, cold air pouring in. We ran outside and found her footprints, barefoot, leading straight into the woods. No coat, no sign of struggle, just gone. We followed them, hearts pounding. The snow was fresh, untouched except for those prints, until they just stopped. No blood, no drag marks, no sign of animals. Just a long scratch on the nearest tree, deep, gouged, almost like a claw. That night, we huddled in the living room with all the lights on. No one slept. Around 3 a.m., something knocked. 3 times. Slow, deliberate. It's me. Sarah, I'm cold. Let me in. We froze. It sounded like her. Exactly like her. But there was something wrong. Too calm. Too flat. And she had never called herself Sarah with us. It was always Sar. Tom moved to open the door, but I stopped him. That's not her, I whispered. Then came the scream. Kai. Piercing. Animalistic. Not human. Scraped across our skulls like glass. The lights flickered. Something banged on the walls. Hard. Circling the cabin. It didn't sound like fists. It sounded like antlers dragging against the wood. And then silence. Morning came. No tracks. No signs of Sarah. Only one thing. A smear of blood across the door. And carved into the wood, in deep, jagged letters, I'm still hungry. We left that morning and never looked back. The police found nothing. No body. No animals. No explanation. But I know what. We saw. What we heard. It wasn't human. It was the Wendigo. And somewhere in those woods, it's still waiting. My brother Ethan went missing last winter. We were close. Always had been. Grew up in a small town near the edge of the forest, where stories about things that lived in the trees were just part of life. Old tales, warnings mostly, but none of us really believed until he disappeared. He'd gone out to check on our uncle's old hunting cabin deep in the forest. Said he'd be back in a day or two, but he didn't come back. Search parties combed the woods for days. They found his jacket, torn and half frozen, and his boots, both left behind in the snow. But no body, no blood, just tracks that led deep into the woods and then vanished. Everyone assumed he was gone, dead, but 5 days later, he came home. He just walked up the driveway like nothing had happened. Only, it wasn't him. At first, we were too relieved to notice. He looked pale, thinner than before. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk, just sat in the living room, staring at the fireplace. For hours, when we asked him what happened, he'd just shake his head. His voice was different too, slow, flat, like he had forgotten how to use it. Then the noises started. I'd hear him walking around at night, heavy, dragging. Footsteps. I caught him once, standing in the hallway at 3 a.m., just breathing. Loud, deep breaths that didn't sound human. One night, I heard my mother scream. I ran into her room, and she was backed into a corner, sobbing, pointing at the doorway. Ethan was standing there, his face blank, but his mouth was hanging open in this unnatural, gaping way, like his jaw had unhinged. And his eyes, They weren't Ethan's. They were sunken, glassy, and glowing faintly in the dark. He didn't move, just stared. That's when I knew this thing, whatever it was wearing my brother like a mask. That night, I locked my door. In the morning, my mother was gone. No sign of struggle, just a trail of small, muddy footprints leading out into the snow, and Ethan, sitting at the kitchen table, covered in dirt, smiling. It was the first time he smiled since he came back. And it wasn't Ethan's smile. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, the house was empty. No Ethan, no mom, no footprints, just a lingering smell like rot and frozen meat. I tried to explain. They didn't believe me. Said my family probably just left, but I know what happened. That thing in the woods took my brother, and then it put him on like a suit, like a trophy, and it came back to feed. Sometimes I hear scratching at my window, and when I look, I see Ethan's face, but it's not him, and it never will be. They say the woods don't whisper, not unless something inside them wants you to listen. I didn't believe that. Not until I heard my name, Mark, whispered from the other side of my front door. At 2:47 a.m. I live alone in a cabin 2 hours north of Thunder Bay. No neighbors, no traffic, just cold and trees. I came out here to disappear, escaping a ruined marriage and a job that hollowed me out. I wanted peace. Silence. I got it. But sometimes silence is a trap too. Weeks ago, the woods changed. The animals vanished. No bird song, no squirrels, not even deer tracks near the stream. Just stillness. Not peaceful, suffocating. Then the trees started bending, slowly, leaning in like they were listening or watching. I locked my doors. I laughed it off at first. Isolation plays tricks on the mind, right? Until I found scratches on the outside walls of the cabin. Long, deep grooves. Too high for a bear. They curved slightly, like antlers had been dragged across the wood. That night, I heard footsteps outside, crunching softly in the snow. I held my breath, staring at the door. Then, a whisper. "Mark, open the door." The voice was soft, familiar. It sounded like my mother's, but my mother's been dead for 3 years. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just listened. The whisper came again, this time from the back door. "I'm cold. Mark, let me in." I stayed frozen on the couch, shotgun across my lap. Every light in the cabin burning. The whisper came one more time, then silence. But I knew it would come back. The next morning, I found footprints. Bare feet, long, thin, and human. They started at the tree line and stopped at my window. No return prints. That night, it came back, but not outside. The whisper came from the living room. "Why won't you look at me, Mark?" I turned. Nothing, but I smelled it. Rot and copper and something old. I found wet prints on the hardwood, long and narrow, leading from the front door to the fireplace. I tried to record it, set up a voice recorder by mine, but the recorder picked up something else. "I see you, Mark. I'm wearing your name." The next day, the trees moved. The path to my truck was gone. My shotgun, gone too. I found it bent in half, tossed on my bed like a joke. That night, I hid under the cabin. In the crawl space, dirt, cobwebs, freezing. Cold. I brought the recorder with me. "I'm so hungry, Mark." The voice came from the crawl space itself, right behind me. I didn't move, couldn't breathe. I knew if I turned around, I'd never be the same again. Then something touched my neck, thin, cold, like a finger made of bone. I bolted, crawled out, ran into the woods. Didn't stop until the world felt wrong, stretched, unnatural. That's when I saw it stood between the trees, 12 feet tall. Its body looked like skin barely clinging to bone. Its head was a rotting deer skull, with antlers like black branches, tangled with scraps of hair and flesh. But the worst part? It was wearing my face, loose, sagging, my dead eyes staring back at me. I dropped to my knees. It crouched, inches from my face. Every movement cracked like frozen branches. Then it whispered, "You heard me. You believed. That's all it takes." It placed something in my hand. My recorder. Then it vanished. No footsteps. No sound. Just gone. I woke up in the snow. Hours later. Maybe days. Doctors said I was hallucinating. Exposure. Trauma. But they didn't hear the tape. Only I did. Because at the very end, through the static, it speaks. Not in my voice. Not in any human voice. It says, "You let me in. Don't listen to the whispers. Don't answer the door. And never, ever. And if you listen, you'll hear it whisper." If this story chilled you to the bone, hit that subscribe button. Help me reach 100,000 souls before the end of the year. Your support feeds the night files and keeps the darkness whispering.